Okay guys, come on, we'll get started. Take your seats. Alright guys, so today we're studying free falling, alright? Basically we did touch on a bit of force and gravity last week, but this week we're going to actually take on an experiment and we will come out with a result and you'll have full understanding on what we actually found. Okay, so basically it's going to involve our two balls, okay? We're going to drop them from the same height outside and we're going to determine which ball will actually hit the ground first. First we've got our basketball, which is heavier than our lighter ball here. There are also obviously different sizes that we can see. We will be dropping them from about 2 metres to 2.5 metres. I have the computers set up over there that we can jump on in a sec. There's 3 questions I do want you to actually find an answer to today before we actually go and get our experiment on the way. The first question was we need to find out what mass is. The second question is we also do need to find out what gravity is. We did discuss it last week, but I just need you to understand what it is for this experiment this week. We also need to find out why, when I drop this ball, we need to find out what is the reason behind why it's being pulled to Earth, okay? So once we find these questions, we can actually get started with our experiment. So I'll set these off and jump on your computers now, and we'll have 10-15 minutes and we'll come back and discuss it. Alright, let's get going. Alright, so we just done our computer task. I had the 3 questions for you guys. The first one was what was mass, second one was what is gravity, and the third one was why do objects get pulled towards the Earth. Okay, so we'll start off with Sarah. What did you end up finding?
I found that mass is a measurement of how much matter an object has.
Yep, no, that's good. Sarah mentions a pretty good term there. Matter is what is involved in this object, in that object, in this object. It's involved in, it's everything around us. Anything that you see has got matter, okay? This ball, for example, has more matter than this ball though. The size does determine how much matter is involved in the certain object, okay? So I've got Mark over here and he has found out what gravity is. What is it, mate?
A force pulling together all matter.
Yep. So gravity is all around us, guys. It's pulling these objects together, as Mark just said. So we'll focus on what John got now. John also found out what and why objects are pulled towards Earth. Why is it, mate?
Because Earth has a large amount of matter, so it has more gravity that affects objects on the Earth's surface.
Yep. So as John just said, the reasoning behind why these objects are pulled towards the ground is basically because the gravity is acting down, or the force is acting down on the balls, pushing them downwards.
Alright, so we've come down here to do our experiment class. I've got Mark up here to show you all what's going to happen. I've got our bigger ball here and I've got our small ball. I'll get Mark to hold it and he can do the experiment. First of all, I'll ask Mark why are we going to hold it this big? The greater chance. Yeah, that's right. Yep. So if you held this one up higher and this one down lower, obviously that one's going to hit first. So we'll let Mark do the experiment. Yep, good. So basically guys, as you've seen, both balls hit the ground at the same time.
Okay, so here we have 2 rocks, guys. A large one and a small one. So we've got our large one here and our small one. Just imagine that they're both on ice. There is no friction, so therefore if we were to push the rocks with the same amount of force, which one will travel further, okay? So we need to think about it, and the answer obviously will be that both will keep moving forever, okay? So when we're on ice, there's no friction and they're going to continue to keep going. Well, they will continue to keep going unless there is a wall where they will stop or the ice does end. If we were to push these rocks with the same amount of force, which one will move faster? So think about it again. We've got our small one and we've got our large one. You're probably all thinking that the smaller rock will move faster, and you would be correct. But why will it move faster, okay? So you've got to think about it in perspective, okay? We've got our smaller one and our large one, okay? It's because the smaller mass of the rock that we've got, so the smaller mass here, you can see that the larger rock has a large mass, okay? the smaller mass is easier to move, the larger mass, harder to move, okay? Okay, so as you have just seen, smaller mass, easier to move. Larger mass, harder to move. Now we're going to focus on our gravity part. So, we have our 2 rocks here, and I'm going to get Sarah to come in, and she's going to lift up the 2 rocks, and we've got our brick and we've got our smaller rock, and she's going to determine, or let us know which one's heavier. Sarah? Which one was heavier, Sarah?
The larger one.
The larger one? And why do you think it was heavier?
It feels like it weighs more.
Yep. Alright, so to elaborate on what Sarah said, the reason is that the brick is heavier, yes, that's correct. But it's heavier because it has a larger mass, okay? As we all know, objects with more mass have a stronger force of gravity, okay? So the small rock has a small mass, yes? So therefore, there's a less amount of gravity acting on it, yep? The larger rock has a larger mass, so there's a larger force of gravity acting on it. Okay guys, so we now need to determine how and why the objects hit the ground at the same time. Okay, so basically we just went through the reasons of the mass and the movement of the ball. Now we just need to understand the reasons why, okay? So basically we just understood that the larger the mass, the harder to move, okay? And the larger the mass, the more gravity, okay? The smaller the mass, the easier to move, and the smaller the mass, the less gravity, okay? So, the larger the mass, harder to move, the larger the mass, more gravity, smaller the mass, easier to move, the smaller the mass, less gravity. And therefore, we're going to see the balls both hit the ground at the same time if dropped from the same point.